Top of the SportsMax zone for this Wednesday. Netball is where we start. Jamaica Sunshine Girls could not maintain their impressive start as they were beaten by England's Roses in the opening test at the AO Arena in Manchester. The Connie Francis coach side made a brilliant start, leading 19-13 at the end of the first quarter and 34-31 at the half. However, England dominated the second half, edging ahead 49-47 at the end of the third quarter before going on to register a 21-goal victory. The Sunshine Girls fell apart in the final quarter, scoring just 5 goals, while England netted 24. Let's look at the Jamaica starting roster. The 7 players: goalkeeper Kadian Dehaney, Jodianne Ward at goal defence, Crystal Plummer at wing defence, Nicole Dixon-Rochester started at centre, and then we had Khadijah Williams at wing attack, Shanice Beckford at goal attack, and the outstanding Janelle Fowler in the goal shooting position. Note that the Sunshine Girls are without key defenders Shamira Sterling and Latanya Wilson, along with centre Adine Thomas. To help us analyse today's effort, we are joined by Kurt Dale. Kurt is captain of the Jamaica national men's netball team. Kurt, welcome to the SportsMax zone. Great to have you on. Massive falling apart for the Jamaicans after the halftime break. How surprising, or may I say disappointing, would this result be for you?
Thanks for having me. It was very, very disappointing. I mean, they came out with real intent and intensity. They started well and the game was flowing real nice, but I'm not sure what happened after that second quarter. It just felt really flat. They weren't connecting as they were in the first quarter, and things just started falling apart.
Yeah, would fitness be an issue here? Because on the surface of it, it would look as if the team got weaker the longer the game went on and England got stronger.
Yeah, man, I definitely agree. Fitness would be my first concern. I mean, you could see them not running onto the ball as hard as they were in the first quarter. So that's how the English defenders were able to come through and get tips and touches on the ball, because we weren't taking our legs to the ball as we were in the first quarter. So I think that's a major concern for them. Another concern were, I mean, some of the rookies, they tried their best, but they weren't able to sustain the intensity that's required at that level for long enough. So they had to be taking Nicole Rochester from the game because they're managing her injuries. And each time she left the court, you could see a shift in the way that they were playing because the rookies didn't slip in. They didn't fill the gaps seamlessly. So that's an area we need to get them. We need to bring them up to speed. But this experience will be very, very good for them and invaluable going forward.
Yeah, well, Abigail Sutherland came through and got some playing time because of Rochester's issues. Are you suggesting that Abigail, young rising player, just isn't up to the mark yet?
I mean, it's a step up from what she's used to. This is probably her second or third international outing. It will take her some time, and it's the first game, so nerves will play a big factor into it. She came on, she had ups and downs, but was not as consistent as she needed to be. But I'm sure she'll learn from this and come back stronger next game.
Okay, so the roster, Kurt, was a pretty strong roster. A couple of players missing. We said Shamira Sterling and Latanya Wilson, up 2 of the foremost defenders. But the defensive players for this game, Kadian Dehaney and Jodianne Ward, are also high-quality players with experience in the Suncorp Netball League in Australia. So with that in mind, what was your assessment of how the team played defensively today?
Well, defensively, they started really good and with real intent, and you could see the experience of Kadian and Jodianne from the start of the game. They were getting tips and touches. This is Kadian and Jodianne's first almost full game together. They have been in the squad together for a little while now, but they haven't actually played much together with Shamira, Latanya, and some of the older defenders like Vanjali and Stacey, usually getting the preferred start over them. So it's new. It's a new place for both of them as well. But you could see that they were above the rest. You could see them standing out. Unfortunately, it didn't last much past the second half. In the second half, we didn't see as much strength from them. Again, I'm citing that to fitness and connection. Even Crystal Plummer in the wing defense, she came out firing in the first quarter, a young player from GC Foster. But to maintain that intensity against a quality player like Nat Hayton, who's the captain of the English team, it's hard work. And we can't go past how hard that is. So kudos to them. I think they did a really good job defensively, but a lot of room for improvement.
Yeah, and Kurt, one of the commentators were talking about the Sunshine Girls and the fact that they had fall off after the second quarter, and something she said really stuck with me, and I'd love to hear your interpretation of that. She was drawing on the point that every time the Jamaican Sunshine Girls, they have a lead and they lose it, it appears as if they can't bounce back. Like they just, they lose all bearings and it's downhill from there versus, what we saw from England today, because the first two quarters could have thrown them off and probably they wouldn't have bounced back. Do you happen to notice that happening with the Sunshine Girls regularly?
I don't agree. To some extent, it has a lot to do with fitness. As a player, like once you get really, really tired and fatigue starts to play a role, it's hard to maintain that intensity. And to maintain that intensity, fighting back, it's even more difficult. So I don't think that it's that they lack fighting spirit. It's just the legs to do that, the legs and the lungs to fight back. And as I said, once you get tired and fatigued, the legs start to get heavy, and it's just extremely difficult. So the mind might be willing, but the body is just not up to it.
Right, let's talk a bit now about the importance of this international series. It's the last international series before the big World Cup in July. What would the Jamaica Sunshine Girls be looking to get from the upcoming matches?
Well, unfortunately, it will be the last for them because, as you saw from this, the fact that they don't play a lot of internationals, it really showed tonight. So some of those younger players aren't as experienced as they should be at this time. So unfortunately, that's it for them. But going forward in the next two games, they'll be really looking to solidify combinations, rotating more, see what works and what doesn't, and just try to cement some spots going forward because only 12 seats are there going to the World Cup. So they need to be really looking into what will work there.
And although we are assessing a disappointing performance, what is true is that I doubt any of this would be a surprise to Connie Francis. She would have known the depth of quality she has. She would have known what the odds were. And I guess this is just a very, very good exercise to run the rule over those who may push the established placeholders for a place on the plane to Cape Town.
Well, I think it might hit her at a bit of a surprise because, again, there are 5-6 senior players on that trip. That should be enough to get the Sunshine Girls across the line with the quality of Janila at the other end and Kadian and Jodian at one end, Rochester in the middle, Beckford on the line. That's a lot of quality.
But let me ask you this. You are, of course, you're very correct that there's a lot of quality there. You're reminding us of that. But the selection that would have played, how many games would they have played together versus how many games the England starting seven would have played against tough level opposition? And you know better than us the value of synchronicity and people knowing the game of the persons that you're on the floor with. And so, yeah, I'm taking your point that, Connie may have said, well, I never expected a 21-point beating, but I'm sure she would not have expected the Sunshine Girls to push the Roses over on their home turf.
I think the win was quite possible today. I really, really do believe that at the end of the day, when you look at some of these girls like Rochester, Beckford, Williams, they have been playing together from the junior levels, coming right through the program, and they have been playing with Janil from about 2011, 2012. So the connection should be there. The only new combination would be the defensive line with Plummer Ward and Dehaney, and they held their own. They did enough that they could have won the game. I think the attacking end is where it fell apart. But 21 goals, I'm not looking too much on the 21 goals because there was a lot of change. And I think in Connie's head, she was probably thinking, okay, let's put youngsters out there. The game is gone. Let's put some youngsters out there. Let's rotate some persons in positions just to see what we have working with going forward. So in the event that something happens tomorrow or next week, then she can say, okay, this will work or that won't work. So just more information going forward.
Yeah, and finally, you responded to a question like this before, but let me put it another way. Based on what you have said about the quality that we have in this squad, is it unreasonable for our ardent netball fan to say, well, I expect the Sunshine Girls to pinch one of the other two games remaining in this series?
Yeah, definitely. As I said, I wasn't overly impressed with what the Roses put out today. I don't think that they were the better team. It's just unfortunately based on how we played and the condition that the Sunshine Girls are in at the moment, the English Roses had the edge, got the edge in the end because that first quarter is a reflection of what that team can do, but the struggle for the Sunshine Girls, they weren't able to maintain that for the full 60 minutes, and that's it. That's a game of netball. You have to be able to do it for 60 minutes. So at best, in that first quarter, for the first 15, they were outplaying the Roses in every aspect of the court with not their first string team, but they weren't able to maintain that sadly, and that's how the English Roses came back at them and clinched it at the end.
Okay, Kurt, we leave it there. We'll watch what happens over the weekend with games 2 and 3. Both of those games will be played at the Copper Box Arena in London. Kurt, thanks for talking to us. We may link with you again next week to recap the 3-match series.
Thank you for having me.
And let's remind you that those 2 games, Saturday and Sunday, are early games Caribbean time. Both of them set for 9 o'clock and 9:15 in the morning. That's 10 o'clock, 10:15 Eastern Caribbean time. Unlike this afternoon's game, which had a 2:15 start, 3:15 Eastern Caribbean time. So early Saturday morning for game 2, and game 3 is also early on Sunday. Goes a break. Back with more on the SportsMax Zone after this.
Thank you for watching SportsMax on YouTube. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and click the notification bell to stay informed.